Good morning. It is March 10th, 2026, and I am reading in the Habits of Health book 2.5, which is Dr. A's color-coded shopping system, choosing wisely. And this is a huge piece about transition. We need to learn this information and truly integrate into it. The cool thing is we have the ability to thrive in life, and we no longer call it transition. We are shifting, and soon it will be called refine, and it's just as important as the retainer with the braces. Otherwise, we'll go right back to who we were prior. And I am on page 251, and I'm in the original book, so it may be a little different than yours. So we're at the middle of the page where it says poultry. So chicken, turkey, and other forms of poultry are healthier choices than red meat. But be careful. The health value and calorie content of poultry can vary significantly depending on the type of bird, which part you eat, and how it is prepared and cooked. For example, while a skinless turkey breast is 18% fat, the fat content of the skinless chicken breast is 24%. And manufactured products such as sausages, hot dogs, and burgers made from turkey and chicken aren't really that much healthier than their meat counterparts. And it goes through, in the green is turkey breast, chicken breast, and then it gets a little bit lighter green for other chicken breast and turkey breast and chicken dark meat and turkey dark meat, and then yellow is turkey sausage. And then in the orange is duck, and even darker is chicken dark meat, and then darker is Cornish game hen, and then in the red, which Dr. A laughingly says it dead, turkey hot dogs. So those are 70% fat versus turkey breast, and the darkest green is 18%. So that's total fat. And then saturated fat turkey breast in the dark green is 6%. And turkey hot dogs with saturated fats come in at a 19%. So as a general rule, avoid eating. However, it is a dark meat, legs and thighs, and always remove the skin before eating, though it is a good idea to keep the skin on while you bake, grill, or broil your poultry to help lock in flavor and maintain moistness without adding significantly to the fat content of the finished dish. So that's a really good tip right there. I didn't remember that. In fact, I was just thinking about that recently. So he says cook it with the skin for moisture, but it doesn't change the fat content very much. So actually it says without adding significantly to the fat content of the finished dish. As far as portion size is concerned, you should ideally end up with a piece that fits in the 25% protein portion of your plate, about the size of a deck of cards, around 3.5 ounces of cooked poultry. And again, this is in the optimization phase. This is when we're thriving. Or this is also if you're using the Lean and Green Plus, which he's now really encouraging, the Lean and Green Plus for those meals during the optimization phase. So we are going to get away from that regular portion of lean and green once we start thriving. That protein's going to be a little smaller, the carbs are going to be a little higher. Now we want to make sure to still get in enough protein. So let's see. Final piece of advice. Free range or organic poultry can help you avoid the antibiotics and growth hormones that are given to many commercially raised birds. And then eggs. Eggs are an incredible source of protein that deliver all the amino acids B2, B12, folate, and vitamin D and E. The whites are wonderful, digestible source of iron as well. While eggs are low in saturated fats, they're a major source of cholesterol. And even though we now know that saturated fats actually has more impact than dietary cholesterol on the blood cholesterol levels, you should still limit your daily intake of dietary cholesterol to 200 milligrams, the amount in one small egg. There's no limit to the amount of egg whites you can eat, as long as they fit the 25% of your plate devoted to protein. Legumes. Legumes, a group that includes beans, peas, lentils, are one of my favorite functional foods and probably my top pick for an all-around health food. They're a good protein source and almost always low glycemic, making them a wonderful alternative for vegetarians or for anyone looking to meet their protein needs while lowering their intake of meats and saturated fats. What else is great about legumes? They're full of riboflavins, niacin, folate, calcium, potassium, iron, and phosphorus. They're high in soluble fiber, which naturally lowers cholesterol. They're less expensive than meat and dairy products and can be made into a wide variety of creative, flavorful dishes. In fact, when it comes to legumes, there's just no downside. A cup of legumes gives you 110 to 150 calories of the best fuel you can buy. Choose from any of the varieties in the chart for your protein portion of your meal. All are low glycemic and do an excellent job of turning off your insulin pump. Sidebar: a habit of health. Legumes. Make daily consumption of legumes, beans, peas, or lentils a part of your healthy eating strategy. And then he has the green, the legumes GI chart. So very low, 30 or less, is soybeans, edamame, chickpeas, garbanzo beans, lentils, and black beans. Those are all under 25. Now, low glycemic, 50 or less, are lima beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, white beans, black-eyed peas. So all of those are 42 or less. So a word about soy. One particularly amazing legume stands out: soy. Soybeans have twice as much protein as other legumes and provide nearly as many essential amino acids as an animal protein without all the saturated fat. They're a good source of calcium as well, making them a great alternative to dairy products. In addition, soy is full of naturally occurring isoflavins, phytonutrients that protect against cardiovascular disease, especially in the Asian population. In fact, I think so highly of soy that I made it my top choice for protein component of our portion-controlled packaged meals, and fuelings are a great way to make using a healthy legume as your protein component. On the side note, a 1-ounce serving of cheese is about the size of 2 AA batteries. So I like string cheese. So, dairy products. Now, one thing I do want to say about soy, and he says it someplace in here, and I'm sure we've either read it or we're going to, recognize soy when it is processed and turned into soy oil. It isn't the healthiest. So a lot of your dressings, you'll see that there is soybean oil, not the healthiest thing for us. So dairy products and cheese. Dairy products are not a necessary food group. Once we're grown, and because they can wall up a lot of calories, so I suggest you avoid them at least during the weight loss phase. If you enjoy them, they can be a good source of calcium, protein, and other nutrients. They are one protein source that can be quite high glycemic also. Despite what the dairy industry would have you believe, dairy products can contribute to poor health if you are overweight and taking in too many calories, if not selected appropriately. Whole milk dairy products are not only high glycemic, but also high in saturated animal fats, a double unhealthy wallop that pumps up insulin while creating ready stores of fat. However, if consuming in portion-controlled amounts, there is a growing evidence that they may lower your cardiovascular risk for the risk of diabetes. There may be some benefits from the fatty acids in whole milk, potentially could help hormone regulation, cause you to store less fat, and rev up your metabolism. Skim milk is stripped of these fatty acids, but one thing we know is that the sugar load is similar. Skim milk simply removes the fat, but the sugar content remains the same. Isn't that interesting? Also, dairy products are an excellent source of calcium, which has been shown to aid in weight loss. But so are many of the fruits, green leafy vegetables, and whole grains you'll be eating. So something with dairy, a lot of times if you find that you have kind of nasal or you have a lot of times we find that people are allergic to dairy and didn't even know it, and you can, because they take it away, and when they add it back in, that's when they notice, oh, there's the thing, because we add things in so specifically slowly. Now, some people during the losing phase use certain products in portion. We use like 2% cottage cheese, not no fat, because that adds a lot more carbs and they add a lot of more things to it. But 2% is fine, 4% is too much. But some people are also, sure they are, vegan or vegetarian. I don't know, one of those can use the 2% cottage cheese. So sometimes they don't take it out. But in fact, dairy products should be used sparingly and confined to low fat, low sugar serving during phase 1 until you reach your optimal weight, and not at all if you're using the prepackaged fuelings. Interesting. Once you've reached your healthy weight, you may opt in to include 2 or 3 servings of dairy a day. You can choose low or high fat unless you have high cholesterol or you're eating saturated fats from some other source. Then you should steer clear of whole fat products and focus on skim, not fat, non-fat, or low fat. Good choices include non-fat yogurt, 6 ounces, non-fat milk, 1 cup, and cheese, 1 ounce, especially low-fat cheeses such as ricotta and cottage cheese. Remember, though, that 1 ounce serving of cheese is a very small amount, about the size of 2 AA batteries. So that's portion size again. So if you have shrimp, it's like this huge portion to get to eat. And then if you have cheese, it's like a light string cheese is, yeah, or 2 is not very much. So anyways, cheese with calories per ounce. So in the green is cottage, ricotta, soy, and feta. And then light green is mozzarella and American. And then brie is in the yellow and blue is in the yellow. Provolone and Gouda are, wow. This is with calories per ounce. This is not glycemic index. That makes more sense. Okay, and then up heading towards red is Monterey Jack, Havarti, Parmesan, Cheddar, Swiss, Jarlsberg, and Colby. Interesting. Sidebar on the left, recent research indicates that the walnuts may be even more important than olive oil in creating the healthy, boosting effects of the popular Mediterranean diet. Seeds and nuts, your high-octane fuel source. These health-giving, low-glycemic, protein-rich foods are also just chock full of healthy fats, but nuts and seeds are also extremely energy dense, meaning that they pack a lot of calories into a small portion. So those calories can add up in a hurry. In fact, a serving size is no more than a small handful. Nuts and seeds are about 15 to 30% protein, with the remainder primarily made up of mono or polyunsaturated fats, the healthy fats. So that's why they say they're healthy, but recognize, do not consider them a protein. Everybody says, oh yeah, nuts, they're protein. No, they're 15 to 30% protein, which means they're 85 to 70% fat, healthy fats, but still, means they're packed, absolutely packed with calories. So, and as an added bonus, they're full of an amino acid that contributes to your body's ability to relax blood vessels, decrease blood pressure, and inhibit clot formation. The steady, powerful fuel they provide makes nuts and seeds great snacks for fueling breaks, with enough protein to give you a pleasant, long-lasting feeling of fullness. Just limit yourself to a small handful to avoid excess calories. Good morning, Dana. Seeds and nuts. We're on 254 and we're in the habits of health. So very low glycemic, 30 or less. Peanuts, Brazil nuts, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, pecans, or pecans, depending on where you're from. Almonds, or I have a friend that says that. How does she say that? I'm not going to even try. Hazelnuts, walnuts. It's my two friends from the Dakotas. They call it can't even say it. Just saying. Okay, grains, 25% of your plate. Functional. Whole grains are great, slow-burning fuel, rich in fiber and loaded with B vitamins, calcium, potassium, and phosphorus. In their natural low glycemic state, they're critical for optimal health. In their intact form, grains are made up of three parts: the bran or hull, the germ, and the endosperm. Whole grains have all three, while the principal component of the refined grains is the least nutritious component of the endosperm or endosperm. Whole grains are not associated with BMI changes and actually create lower fasting insulin levels, higher folate levels, and decreased chronic disease. Sidebar on the right, eating unhealthy carbohydrates like soda, French fries, candy, and donuts brings your fat-burning machinery to a halt. And I don't know how many times this last fall when I was sitting at Dr. A's feet, he said, if you spike your blood sugar, you cannot burn fat. Even if you are limiting your calories, you will burn muscle. Oh, yikes. Okay, refined grains. The advancement in technology changed flour from a gray nutrient-packed flour that needed to be eaten quickly before it spoiled to a white powder, which is principally made from the endosperm, which has little nutritional value and is highly digestible. High glycemic index. It's also cheap and can be stored for longer, but it's lost all its nutrients. It has been implicated in weight gain, obesity, inflammation, and cancer. Dysfunctional. When refined and processed grains are really unhealthy starches, or are perhaps better described as an energy-dense, high glycemic poison that turns on your insulin pump and puts you in fat storage mode. It may seem melodramatic, but it's true. Your grain selection set the stage for success or failure. Starches come in a vast array of options. Sadly, most of the options developed and promoted by fast food and processed food industries are bad for you. Healthy starches, however, are a nutrient-rich source of slow-burning fuel and long-lasting energy. When looking at starches, it's essential to consider the position on the glycemic index. Most processed and prepackaged starches score high on the index, meaning that they deliver large amounts of carbohydrates and must be avoided. Instead, shop for healthy, low glycemic starches using my color-coded system. Your reliable guide in this vast and sometimes confusing food group. Healthy starch choices: bread, pasta, noodles, and breakfast cereals made from whole grains such as rice, oats, wheat, barley, and rye. Potatoes, though are a vegetable, act more like a refined starch due to their high glycemic and high carbohydrate content. Starchy foods include peas, coarse, potatoes, beans, pastas, rices, and grains. Starches are a more concentrated source of carbohydrates and calories than fruits, non-starchy vegetables, and dairy, but many of them are excellent sources of fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. And I am going to give a quick plug too, because cereals, I have not found a cereal that I feel like it is very healthy. Guess what? I finally found one. The one that I was using was Special K protein, but they actually changed the formula. But the one that I have found recently, they actually have Premier Protein. It's a pretty good balance. And also, created by a diabetic is the Catalina Crunch. And it's a higher protein product. Um, and it's pretty tasty. The only thing is you have to, again, portion size. A portion, an ounce of that is just barely on a small bowl. But that's still giving you 110 calories. It's actually giving you quite a punch of protein along with carbs. So it's balanced. It's the best balance that I've found, and it fills me up. So in optimization, when we're using whole foods, that's my recommendation for a cereal. Okay, so left sidebar, your grain, starch choices can set you up for success or failure. Low glycemic whole grain starches are critical for optimal health, while refined and processed high glycemic starches put you in a fat storing mode. Remember, we are using grain and starch interchangeably to be able to use the tools presented in the My Plate system to guide you on a healthy and unhealthy choices. So again, when I am using those that cereal, I literally have snack bags that I just use and reuse, and I put 1 ounce on the scale and I have them pre-portioned because I don't want that to get smaller or larger. And that's just a habit of health that I've come up with. So, bottom part, a healthy portion of grain starch is about the size of a tennis ball. So, portion of your meal, 25% of a 9-inch plate, portion size about the size of a tennis ball. Grain choices, there's a wide variety of grains out there, many of which fall into the unhealthy high glycemic category. Just stay in the green and you'll be fine. I've included potatoes, actually a vegetable, in the unhealthy starch section because they're high glycemic, high carbohydrate content means they function more as a starch in most meals. So, cereals, breads, pastas, GI chart in the green, and it's not not dark green, it's actually light green. So it's 50 or less. So there's not one in the dark green for cereals, breads, and pastas, GI chart. Quinoa, muesli, rye bread, unrefined flour, breads and pastas. Buckwheat, pasta, whole grain, whole wheat bread with bran, all bran cereal, sourdough bread. And then yellow for the high glycemic, but yet not red, 50 or more, is oatmeal from steel cut oats, Somalia, cream of oats, a hamburger roll, couscous, I don't know that, cereal refined, corn flakes is 70, white bread 71, bagel 72, dinner roll 73, Kaiser roll 73, crackers 80. And that cracks me up because the dinner roll, again, this last fall, he was holding a dinner roll and he said, choosing this dinner roll means you're choosing Alzheimer's. Spiking the blood sugar is what is messing with our metabolic health, creating metabolic dysfunction. Alzheimer's is one of those metabolic dysfunctions that we just keep choosing and choosing and choosing by going to the fast food restaurants, by choosing that dinner roll, by choosing candies and cakes and bad things that spike our blood sugar and really create that corrosion in a body that's supposed to thrive. So, commercial breakfast products. The only one in the light green, not the dark green, the really healthy one is All Brand. And then the high glycemic Frosted Flakes, Special K, Nutri-Grain, Fruit Loops, Honey Smack, Kellogg's Raisin Bran, Bran Flakes, Cocoa Pops, Kellogg Corn Flakes, Corn Pops, Rice Krispies. Wow. Rice Krispies are 82. Crispix, 87. Wow. Shredded wheat, 75. Wonder Bread, 80. And oatmeal, 82. Pastas and potatoes, rice, GI chart. So low, but still in the light green, not the dark green. Wild rice, yams, spaghetti, whole wheat, spaghetti durum, I don't know what that means, basmati rice, sweet potatoes, and brown rice. Brown rice is 50. And then the high glycemic in the yellow, not red for dead, white pasta, 55. Potatoes with skin, baked or broiled, 65. Potatoes peeled and boiled, 70. Potatoes, 80. Potatoes instant mashed, 88. French fries, 95. I can't believe you even has that on the yellow. Risotto, 70. Rice cakes, 85. Rice pre-cooked, 90. On the right sidebar, he says, eliminating all ultra-processed unhealthy food filled with refined sugars and flours can have a dramatic positive effect on your health. There's a note, it says gluten intolerance, celiac disease, and reported gluten sensitivities. There appears to be a rising prevalence of gluten sensitivities in the U.S. In those individuals, the elimination of grain is helpful. For the main population, there's no health benefits of eliminating gluten any more than there would be to eliminate peanuts to improve health of people that are not allergic to them. Interesting. Okay, and then red is dead, the starch and sugars, unhealthy habits of disease, donuts, sodas, cookies, candy, and French fries. So I'm going to stop there and